Top 10 teams struggle to find wins. Week 4 promises to have the first round of real competition for top teams, and more on this week's Tailgate. Welcome to this week's Tailgate. I'm Luke, and I'm joined here by Dennis and Michael, as always.
Hello, hello.
Buenos dias.
And before we get into everything, let's have a word from our sponsors.
Yeah, so our sponsor tonight is, like all nights, is going to be Explore Tours. If you are in the Middle Tennessee area and you're looking for some kind of educational tour, adventure tour, or just all around just want to get to know and experience Nashville or Middle Tennessee to a greater degree, check out exploretours.com. They got you covered. All right, so we had some interesting... it was an interesting weekend for sure. Very interesting weekend.
I think it definitely caught all of us off guard, like how good this past weekend was.
Yeah, well, it caught us off guard in a way that like we weren't expecting because the teams that we picked for game of the week were kind of duds to some degree. I mean, I guess Tennessee UF was not a dud; it was just more of a disappointment. But the other two were just kind of
you are.
That's true.
Yeah, the other two were just kind of like, eh.
Yeah,
other ones were definitely forgettable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but like, I mean, just like we can do a quick little recap or whatnot. I mean, you got Louisville and Indiana, like kind of.
Louisville went up.
I thought it was going to be a little bit more exciting. I thought Louisville honestly was going to dominate a bit more, but you know, a win's a win. I think they'll take it.
And the opposite side of that, I thought Indiana's defense was really going to showcase and kind of stop that explosive
They
Louisville.
didn't stop in the second half.
They stopped him in the second half. Louisville had those 21 unanswered in the first half.
Yeah.
Indiana, I think, had 14 in the third, and then the fourth quarter just kind of like was everybody going.
Exactly.
I think we're ready for a nap, and just kind of forgot.
Done playing. So, and then the what was the other one? Minnesota, North Carolina.
Yeah, that was just a blowout.
Whose choice was that?
I mean, some guy over there.
I mean, it was a game of the week. I recall, and honestly, depending on who you are, that was the game of the week because you're probably just a player of the game. Like,
if you're a North Carolina fan, it was the game of the week. You were excited.
North Carolina fan or Nate McCullum.
That
fair. Dude dominated.
Yeah.
15 catches, 165 yards, and TD. I'm like, bro, you had one hell of a game.
Yep.
Yeah, Marvin Harrison numbers.
Yeah. Which and then I mean the other game of the week that we picked was Tennessee versus Florida, and it would have been a better game. The things that I'll say is, one, Florida showed up to actually play.
Yeah.
They
and their fans showed up too.
Their fans did show up. That helps. Again, the Swamp, as we said last week, is a very difficult place to play. So that's
20
not
years,
surprising.
right? Losing. I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's true. But like I don't think that those heebie-jeebies got into Tennessee at all.
No, they just seemed a little bit more touchy, to be honest.
No, they lack some touch is what it really boiled down to. And like both on offense and defense, just not firing on all cylinders. Now the defense made the adjustments properly for the second half, and they really shut down the offense in a good way, or Florida's offense in a good way. But it didn't do any. It didn't matter because Tennessee's offense just could not get anything grooving. The first drive looked great, and then after that, it just fizzled out.
No, just the defense in the second half by the refs, you just couldn't avoid it.
True, yeah. I mean, I have to give Florida some credit there. I mean, that's some pretty impressive reffing. I mean, defense that they did, and
it was amazing.
I mean, some of those calls. Woo.
Check the refs' bank accounts.
Yeah, see if they got some of that Florida donor money.
Florida fundage.
Wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, I'm surprised that Florida didn't withdraw that like they do for all their other NIL contracts.
They're probably waiting until the end of the year, man.
That's true. But other teams though, like in the top 10, just had some rough,
struggles.
So many struggles. I mean, starting off, you have Florida State, who should not have struggled.
No.
At all against Boston College.
I mean, Florida State, Michigan.
Yes. Michigan didn't do great.
Took a long time to get started.
Yeah, they took the long time. I mean, even Georgia literally looked like a dud the first half, and and of course, they get they brought it back. They took back over the game in the second half, but they really they were a few plays away from losing that game.
Yeah, I was really heartbroken about that one. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, I understand.
I kind of wanted Georgia to lose the first time they played team, and this is how you guys played.
Yeah, well, and what the reason why I didn't really want Georgia to lose, but I wanted I wanted the better quarterback to really be able to ball out and show up.
Yeah.
Because Rattler owned that game. He dominated that game. He has to deal with the fact that the reason why he only looked good for 2 quarters is because of the fact that his offensive line just gives up. They're just too porous.
Yeah.
And
he just doesn't have the same amount of talent that it's going to be on
that a Georgia does have. And that's why we were talking about earlier. It's like if Rattler had an offensive line like a Georgia or an Alabama or something like that, well, Alabama supposedly has an offensive line.
No, they got a son. They just got no quarterback.
I don't know. We're gonna hit that here in a second. But it's one of those things like if he had that protection, like how much more of a baller would he actually be? Because I mean he's sitting at crazy stats, 70 like high 70s in accuracy percentage. I mean, just tons of TDs already for the season, lots of yardage. And so it's just like, it just doesn't make any sense to me that someone who easily is going to be probably a first rounder next year going into the draft, like is kind of stuck on a team that is like has potential because Beamer ball does seem to be a thing, but just is locked at a weird level of talent.
The only reason why a quarterback who has those kind of stats is not winning big games like that is either they have a horrible run game, or B, their drives are going to get squashed by a sack, a big sack, something like that. Like those are really the only 2 reasons why that happens.
And that's could be said is the fact that like if you don't have that good of a run game, but you're able to kind of put that kind of completion percentage and everything, that says a lot. Like
100%.
It still makes you seem like, hey, you're literally just manipulating just how the defense is going to work and just taking apart.
Exactly.
Yeah. But so we had Georgia, we had FSU like struggling, we had Texas struggling. Like that was I'm not gonna lie, that was a little weird. That was weird. I mean, it's just but I think the biggest struggle bus that we saw all weekend that we all were scratching our heads about, and anybody that was just a casual watcher was scratching their heads about, and the people that actually are in the know were also scratching their heads about was Alabama and South Florida. Like the fact that it was tied for most of that game, like, or I shouldn't say most, but it was tied for way too long in that game.
Yes.
And the fact that it was just 17-3, like that, it should have been like 61-3. And
I'll say something like that. Yeah, that would have been more likely, typically of Alabama.
Yeah, and it's just, and you were talking about how Alabama's got this crazy this crazy front for their like kind of ground and pound like murder ball kind of thing that they were trying to do. They haven't shown any of that.
No, it's actually the opposite.
They've shown
they were getting murdered.
Yeah, well, they don't seem to have any control over the clock.
No,
like Saban wanted, stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of people that are saying like Saban got sold a hill of beans with Reese like as the offensive coordinator.
Yeah,
yeah. He's going to try to offload him as quickly as possible.
Probably.
I mean, this is just, it's been such a disappointing. I mean, it's one of those things like you kind of want to feel sorry for Alabama fans, but then you remember the past 10 years and you're like, no, I don't. 15. I don't feel sorry for you. Like you had one of these years coming.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is just, it's baffling to sit here and watch just week after week Alabama lose to a team to like they're just not the same Saban coach team that they're ready for every play. They're ready to go.
Yep.
They are prepared to dominate every single game, and it's confusing.
Yep. I mean, it's been so long since we've seen that from Alabama being that kind of team. We just got used to it.
Right.
Well, yeah, and I mean it's one of those things like you're seeing probably the first Alabama team that we're getting reports of that are saying like they just don't want to play certain games, or they just don't feel like they need to compete and things like that. That's one of the reasons why Milroe didn't play against USF is because of the reports coming out of the camp and stuff like that and practice for that past week was that he was just upset that he was having to compete with the other quarterbacks, even though he still didn't lock down the starting position. No, it's not like he's amazing.
You're in college football. You're literally week by week that's going to be how you basically keep your position, starting position, unless you had some crazy numbers or you were a Heisman person the year before. And even then, if somebody's outplaying you, you got to put the best player on the field.
What have you done for me lately?
Exactly.
I mean, that's what college football is, especially in these big name schools like Alabama, where it's like, hey, to me, it reminds me back of when Ohio State won their last national championship and they lose 2 quarterbacks, Braxton Miller and JT Barrett, get their third string and Cardale Jones comes in. like these teams have 3 quarterbacks who are all easily ready to go play games. Should be ready at that level. So to go into this thinking like, oh, I don't want to play. I don't want to practice. I've earned my spot. Like I'm good to go. If that really is the case, like that's just sad.
You think like Saban's losing his touch? Because I feel like more than ever, I'm literally seeing more articles, more interviews asking like, hey, is this your year? Like I know he's in his 70s, but
Right.
I don't imagine him retiring anytime soon, to be honest.
One of the things we talked about earlier today, and I love the point that you talked about, is not necessarily that he's losing his touch. It's just that he's done a really good job of training up the coaches that he's putting out into
I mean, if you're constantly losing like 1 or 2 coaches a year, it's kind of hard to keep up the pace. Like,
and not that, but I mean, I'll let you. This was your point, so I want you to take it.
Well, okay, fine. But essentially, I was saying like one of the reasons why we're seeing this like kind of this weird power. It seems like a weird power shift going on, especially outside the SEC, is that you've got all of these other the QBs, all these other coaches that have that studied under Saban and have gone out from him to basically run their own programs, and they're effectively beating Saban now at his own game to some degree because they're younger. They've got different ideas, things like that. They've got more modern football ideas or whatever it may be.
Relate to the.
I mean, the
kids a
overall
little
record though, Saban is actually still doing pretty well against assistants. I'm not sure the exact.
True, but he doesn't play his assistants as often as people think.
Right.
People make it out to.
No, I mean 100% true.
But the fact that like you've got Sarkisian is on the rise. You've got Venerables was one of his right.
I think so.
Yeah,
Sounds about right. Yeah.
And so, but then I mean, even Lane Kiffin, who we'll get to later, like they're about to duke it out this weekend.
Yep.
And so, like, that's like we're talking bottom, like this. We're talking 3 different coaches, but we've got significantly more than that. That all came from some kind of Saban tree or touched the Saban tree. Billy Napier is one of the ones that touched the Saban tree. Yep. So it's just like there's all these different coaches that have touched that tree in some way, shape, form, or fashion, and they're starting to affect change at the programs they're going to. And then that's why one of the reasons why you're seeing this power shift of you're just really seeing better coaching across the entire country, which is a good thing, not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because it's not like it was 15 years ago where you've got like 3 major coaches that are phenomenal, like Urban Meyer and Saban, and
it elevates the game of play like overall.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so
it makes it for a more interesting overall experience with college football, which I think is what we're seeing this year. Where we're seeing this
we're not seeing any one dominant team.
so much parity. There's no elite teams, and it's just really cool to see. It's real.
I can't remember a season where it was like this before.
Yep, and which I mean is fun. I mean, we're going to actually see more of this going forward because we're going to have the 12-team playoff, and
I'm
so
looking forward to that.
I'm looking forward to it to some degree. I agree with some of the people that have been like kind of the opponents of it in the sense that adding more games to like these kids' rosters and stuff like that could be dangerous for them. They're like, especially since they're not technically professional yet, and so it's just like they're still conditioning, they're still strengthening themselves and stuff like that. And so the ones that are playing at a super high level that are ready to go to the pros, they're going to be ready for
it.
That.
Also kind of gives like a lot of those players were like, hey, if they're coming from a smaller school or they haven't had much screen time, because most of the time the games you get to see on TV are going to be the bigger schools, the main schools you always see.
Yeah.
So it gives those players the chance to like, hey, this is your one shot. You're going to actually have a big stage versus a school that's constantly going to be mentioned like in the NFL by scouts. Are you gonna stand up to the talent?
You said one shot, and I just started hearing Eminem. I was like,
of course you do. Of course you are. Of course. The one thing for Michigan you actually like.
Right. That's true.
No, but I really do want to say though, before we actually kind of get off Alabama any further, there's one particular kind of hit. There's one moment that I actually really love.
Would you say this is your big hit of the week?
I had to.
Oh, okay.
And I had to.
Okay.
And I think the best part for me, like that I'm really gonna love about saying this one, is that when I coached, I'm a really big advocate of just kind of old school football, just running the ball. Don't get me wrong, I was more on the defensive side when I was coaching.
Yeah.
But I love the kind of the control you can do. And when you have a running back that just flat out runs over a defender,
It was beautiful.
there's nothing that gets me more excited. Like I just love that. And so I feel like what we have here. Naquan Wright just trucks and this is the best part, an Alabama defender. Now, most of the time when you say an Alabama defender, you imagine them doing the hitting, them doing the dominance, them just laying someone out flat.
Yep.
So when it comes to a small school a USF.
Yeah.
That's unheard of, man.
Well,
Like,
and it was a defender coming out of the secondary, running. I mean, I wouldn't say full speed, but
No.
coming up,
but he saw that coming.
he saw
Yeah.
saw the running back going. He was pursuing. He was like going in to make a
I do
hit.
give him, he was full on red. He was full speed.
Right.
He was looking toward the hit. It wasn't like some like Tennessee thing where it's like, hey, tap tap,
Right.
like go ahead, I'm cheering you on.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
Let me
I had to throw that
Yeah.
in there.
I mean,
my shoulder.
Yeah,
to push you over.
I'm cheering you on, man. Go ahead, you got
can-
the rim. This is a
We
touchdown.
can talk about the it's just the nudge of the week.
yeah. What's his
nudge
name?
of the week.
Number 5.
Haddon.
Get there. Get to the end zone.
Like it's over there, buddy. Go ahead. I got you. Cheering you on, man.
Yeah.
But no,
Support.
that hit was just.
Yes.
I remember seeing it and just going, oh.
No,
Yeah.
Oh
man.
Like I just was. It just made me happy. There's nothing I can really say about other than that.
Oh yeah, which and that's the type of stuff. Those are the things that like just get you like really excited. And
Yeah.
especially when an offensive player is willing to just lay out a defensive player like that and fight for first down or fight for any kind of yardage, you're like, oh, this is someone that actually really loves the game.
Especially now how the game is changing, becoming more speed oriented, more
Yep.
even pass heavy, and
Yep.
just kind of like more of a spread wise. So the running over like part, you don't see it as often. Usually, if it's run over, the player tends to kind of fall forward in the process as well. But this dude was just like, nope, I'm gonna keep on running. You're not gonna stop me. Like just a freight train just going right through. So that I really have to say that was that hit of the week, and I feel like nothing can definitely outweigh that.
Nope. I have
Yeah.
no complaints on my.
Yeah, no,
on that one. I'm gonna.
Exactly. It just straight out that flat out was just like one of the best hits for sure. So I mean, in this moment, I do have to eat some humble pie because this is the part of the show where I have to eat humble pie because we might sometimes get some of our upsets correct. But most of the time we don't. And that's just because we're not real analysts. We're just guys that just like football and we just talk about football. There's the closest person to an analyst on this panel right now is Dennis, and he just likes to analyze big hits,
Just everything.
mostly big hits, or nudges. He likes those nudges.
Or what's in his cup.
I feel
Or
like-
what's in his cup. Yeah.
sometimes there'd be good stuff on either end. A good nudge, a good support. I'm always supporting the athlete to make sure they see the ends of the on that.
That's right. That's right. Keep the positivity, man.
However-
but I was a little harsh with Ole Miss, thinking that they were going to look past Georgia Tech, and I am glad to know that they didn't. They actually held their own. They did a great job. They took them out. They treated Georgia Tech like a legitimate opponent.
Right.
And that's what you want to see. You want to see them week in and week out going at it, and that's one of the reasons why I think that they're going to be really prepared for this upcoming weekend.
Hope so. They better be.
No, I mean, you kind of had it right going into the fourth quarter though. Like
True.
it's just like Ole Miss for some reason decided to wake up and like, hey, we're playing a football game. We should probably win.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so it's again I'm perfectly fine with eating my slice of humble pie because I don't have to eat 2 slices because Mizzou made sure that I was not a full-on liar.
Yes.
Not just
Full-
Mizzou.
Oh yeah. What's his kicker's name?
Oh, I'm actually kind of blanking on his name right now.
I'm totally blanking on his name right now.
It is Mizzou kicker
Yeah.
Harrison Mevis.
Well, Harrison
Harrison
Mevis,
Mevis.
but what's his other name?
What's his nickname?
He is nicknamed the thicker kicker.
The thicker kicker.
That's he's 5'11", 243.
Oh, he big. He thick.
That's a big. I mean,
Like that's not 1 C.
The
That's not 2 C.
thicker
That's 3
kicker.
C's right there.
That's three. Yeah, that's not just 2 C's.
That's
That's 3
three.
C's.
Yeah. Yeah, but the fact that he not only did, and this is where I'll give them the coaching staff from Mizzou some credit. They had the gusto to just go for it. Just let's not go into overtime. Let's go for the win. So they went for the win.
Yeah.
And they secured the longest field goal in SEC history, which is crazy.
What I
cool.
found even crazier is the fact
Yeah.
that I saw like an article. You good, big guy?
Good.
Like, don't choke. There's already a couple teams that already did. But no, this is what I said. No, they massively. I mean, 20 years. Is it still choking after 20 years? You know, these continuous listening.
That's just death.
All right. Not only that.
No, but no, it's like this is what I saw. Like apparently, like in other interviews, he's apparently kicked a 75-yard field goals in practice, pre-games, and I was like, I'm like. There's professional kickers that do that.
Right.
That's probably why they had the
a boot.
confidence that they were going to be able to do
Yeah,
it.
for sure.
I mean, it's always a different thing when you can kick a 75-yard field goal with actual defenders trying to block you.
And it wasn't like a barely made. It was just like, no, it was a solid field goal. Like, it was like, yo, like, it was like, oh, it's going.
Right.
Is it
Didn't
go
doink
in?
Didn't doink the
No,
upright
it did
flip
not.
in. Yeah, it went in.
Like-
So
Like, even Florida needs a kicker like that. I'm just saying.
Oh my
so-
goodness, yeah, that was actually
That was a fun
hilarious.
game, though. We actually ended up watching together. And
Harrison Mevis.
yeah, we
Hats
give it
off
to
to
you.
you.
The thicker kicker.
The thicker
You
kicker.
can't forget about it. You
thicker
got
kicker.
to put a little bit of respect on that name.
Call in.
Yeah, come on the show. We'll gladly let you sit here and tell us all about your thick kicking.
No,
Now-
the boot.
Now, great thing. So Missouri, we love seeing the thicker kicker. We love talking about
And
guys
a
with
good coach
with
call.
61, good coach call. But one of the bad things, some of the bad things here.
Yeah.
Now, listen, we're going to go into the ref call, and this was I didn't see a whole lot of bad, just egregious calls. You know, in the past
Yeah.
we've said we've
Yeah.
had some like pass interference that lost the game for Baylor.
Oh, yeah.
You know, things
Yeah.
like that were just egregious. So there wasn't a lot of that. This was the ref who, I know we all saw it, I think a lot of people did, who allowed the Florida team to sub on a 4th and 2. Was it 4th and 2 or 4th and
yeah,
1?
it was
Fourth and
it was
very
fourth
short.
and something.
Yeah,
It was
okay.
4th and short.
One or two.
Yeah, it was
fourth
fourth
and
okay.
short.
For some reason, I was thinking it was third.
And allowed Florida to sub when UT had not subbed. Now, it
Yep.
was a really interesting kind of what had gone on. You know, he was setting up. You know, we talked. Heupel likes to kind of do that fast. You know, 4th down, go fast. Don't let him.
Yep.
Don't let them
Don't-
sub.
yeah.
Just get into there, get going. Hopefully,
Don't want
they're
'em
tired.
fresh.
Don't want any fresh people. The ref apparently kicked the ball, was going to reset, and then held them up to allow Florida to substitute. Now, listen, I'm looking through here. Tennessee was 0 for 3 on 4th down. They had 10 penalties for 79 yards. I don't know that this call is going to sway things enough for Tennessee to come back and win. However, again, kind of going back to that Baylor thing, you took all the momentum out of Tennessee sails.
Yeah.
Tennessee was, going for this 2-point. Even if they had let them take the ball and snap it, they might have gotten too many men on the field. They get a free shot at the end zone.
Yeah. I mean, they're
all these
right
things.
there at the red zone.
They're right there in the red zone. So that has to be one of those, like, it's a big game. The swamp is loud. We got to remember even the refs are going to make some mistakes when
True.
you got stuff like that. However, just a horrible call by that ref, a horrible blunder.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
I
you,
agree.
I mean, you see Heupel on the sidelines going, "What in the world?" Like
He was going
what? Like he
wild.
was incredibly livid because they were doing something that's against procedure, and
Yeah.
so like when that stuff is happening, like that's one of those things. Like that's where I agree with you. It doesn't automatically. It's not like we're talking like it was like a neck and neck game. But that was early enough in the second
it could've
half.
changed things.
Right.
It could have
changed
It could have changed the momentum for Tennessee's offense to get into a groove, to feel confident with themselves, and Florida's offense was getting shut down by the defense at that point. I mean, it really could have turned into that changed the game
and that
for
was
Tennessee.
one of the few drives where Milton actually looked competent.
Right.
So,
Yep.
like, easily could have just set the tone for the rest of the second half.
Well, and
Yep.
like you said, I like the term you used, procedural. This is a procedural thing. This is something that, I mean, even some like casual fans know.
Yep.
And so this is not something where you're making a judgment call. This
Nope.
is black and white. If the offense doesn't sub, the defense doesn't sub.
Period.
And so it's a procedural thing. So
Yeah.
So those refs do better.
Yeah. Shame on you.
Shame. Shame.
Shame.
But then we're gonna go to the coaching call.
Ooh.
And now this one, I want to kind of start off. I like this coach.
Yeah.
I think he's a good dude. I think think he's a good coach. But Jay Norville of CSU, the first thing you did wrong is Deion Sanders takes list of everybody who does him wrong.
All the
Yes, he
haters.
does.
Everybody,
Yeah.
all the haters. He takes lists, and he has proven to.
He's like Santa Claus, man. He checks the list
Yeah,
twice
he-
just to make
he-
sure.
Yeah, and if you're naughty, he's coming after you. But like you publicly criticize him about respect and all this kind of stuff, which, I think it was Reese Davis saying something about like, well, no, I know Jay Norville, and he's talking to his players when he's saying that. And he's really telling his players that this is kind of what he expects from them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, even if that's the case, you do that in the locker room.
Yeah.
You do that privately. You don't give Deion Sanders anything to put up on the poster board there.
Yeah.
True.
So that's his first mistake. The second thing is he honestly did a great job of making sure that his guys were not intimidated.
Yeah.
Those
it's
guys
true.
were not scared
No.
of Colorado at all.
If anything, and this is probably why they had so many penalties that game, he literally told, I don't think he told his players to be like,
Told him to be
trying
aggressive.
yeah, he just told him to be aggressive.
Right.
Some of these players took it a little too far.
Right.
But I feel like if you're going to play a team like Sanders and how the hype was going, like I feel like there's no other way to do it, honestly.
There's no other way. But by not being intimidated, they didn't play smart.
No.
And so what you saw is he coached a great game. I mean, honestly, that was one of the best games I've seen coached
Yeah, it was
by,
neck and
by
neck.
a losing
for
team,
a-
honestly. He had his team ready to play physically. He had his team ready to play emotionally to beat this Colorado team that's just so incredibly hot. Unfortunately, they were not mentally ready
Yeah.
to come in and to get this win.
Yeah.
And so for that, I've got to give Jay Norville, my coach, like, come on, dude, you got to do better. Like, you
Yeah.
did everything so much right, but the things that you did wrong are what cost you the game.
Yes.
Yeah, you don't want to get into an entire like pride fest or whatnot. Like you're trying to like almost like fight this like this the Deion Sanders swagger
Right.
and hype with this old school like the
Mentality.
old blood college football. This is this and this that and the other. And how dare Deion drag its name through the mud?
Right.
It's like okay, man. Just one. I've heard some people say that too, and I've actually read some stuff recently, like just this past week. It's like Deion is actually everything that college football is about, in the sense that it's about showboating. It's
Yeah.
about these crazy things. I mean, that's why we have bands, and that's why we have cheerleaders, and that's why we have like just
Mascots.
and just crazy
tailgating.
things and tailgating, like what we're doing right here, and other.
Can't believe we just did that.
You know, like,
Not that.
Are you sure? But it's one of those things like it. He exemplifies a lot of great characteristics of college football, and
He's
so
always been that though. Like even when in his
Yeah.
college days.
it is. But the thing is, and I get where Norvell's coming from, in the sense that, like, and we talked about it a little bit last week, and we've talked about it in the chat. Like, I'm just tired of all the Sanders hype. Like, it's just
Right.
he still hasn't proven himself. He's played 3 games. Give it some time.
Right.
See what he's going into a gauntlet. That's when we're going to see what he's made of.
100%. Don't get me wrong. I agree with what you guys are saying, but you also have to realize, or I mean, you guys already know this, and we've talked about this plenty of times. He's doing exactly how you said what college football is.
100%.
College football is about atmosphere. He is bringing 100%
bringing
the
the
atmosphere.
atmosphere, yeah.
His team may not win versus the gauntlet that's coming up in the next few weeks for him, but if you're able to change the art of the environment, the culture. There's only one thing left to do, and it's winning. Don't get me wrong, that is extremely important.
Right.
But once you start the culture and everything trend, that's when everything is just like everything's gonna be an easier process, because this talent's gonna come through, players are gonna believe in you, and once you have players believing in the coach, which they 100% do, it's just a matter of like how good are you at coaching and who you're gonna have around you.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that I think he does so well is it's like right now, who would not want to play for Deion Sanders?
Shoot.
Like, I mean, that's the thing is like you're going to get guys who go, he's going to, for a while, I think he's going to have to kind of steal some recruits and kind of get some guys that are normally going to go to the big name schools. But like, I mean, seriously, like,
I mean, he's giving me hope, man. Like,
Yeah. I mean,
I'm out of my college eligibility, but I know there's some kickers like in their late 20s, early 30s. And I'm like, yo, I might have a chance. Hold on, give me some time. I have some eligibility.
get
Let me
that
do
leg
it.
going, get that leg
Like,
going.
I just got to practice my kicks, man. Like, I got to make sure, like, hey, in football, American football, gridiron football, it's over the post. I just got to make sure of that, and I'm good.
Well, speaking of Colorado State, I'm gonna go right into bad coaching,
Yes.
and we're gonna go to implosions because
Yep, that's
honestly,
exactly what that
anybody
was.
who watched this game,
Yep.
Colorado State imploded. So
It was their game to lose.
Oh, yeah.
I said those exact things.
They were. I mean, the mental mistakes that they made were just. I mean, it was just hard to watch at times.
Yeah.
They were up 11 with 11 minutes and 22 seconds to go. They had a great punt that's downed at the 2.
Yep.
And then gave a seven play 98-yard drive.
Yep.
Okay.
Like,
Colorado State had 17 penalties. 11 of them were 15-yarders.
Yep.
They were penalized for 182 yards. They had 4 turnovers, one of which was returned for a touchdown. And they were still in the game. They were still in the game. And this is why I think I go back to that coaching and why it was such a bad coaching call was all of those numbers were against them and they were still in the game.
Yeah.
If you take out all those all the mental mistakes, all the emotional mistakes, Colorado State blows Colorado out.
yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Would not have gone into overtime.
no,
100%.
I don't even think Colorado would have been wanting to play in the fourth quarter. I mean, that's where I think it's such an implosion is that like when you look at the score, it was a close game.
Yeah.
And then when you see this kind of stuff and you just go, how in the world do you like they didn't just shoot themselves in the foot. They took a cannon and aimed it down and put their foot in front of it. I mean, it's ridiculous.
How do you? No, I mean exactly everything you're saying. Like, I don't think it would have been a blowout by any means or that, but they could have won easily by like 2 possessions. Like,
Yeah.
they should have won by at least 2 possessions. Maybe Jay Norvell was correct. They needed to score 34 before the fourth quarter to win. Because guess what? We end up tying the game below that score, and this is where we're at.
Yep.
So I mean, and I remember we were watching the game together, and I was like, if they literally scored this 98-yard drive. It is their they deserve to lose this game.
Yep.
And as soon as they scored, I know you were kind of already passing out, but me and Mike were
long
talking.
night.
Yeah, it was. Like the game was going like past midnight, so I was like, "Hey, we're here watching it."
I had to get up in 6 hours to get the kids up.
And we all have our struggles. I had to wake up before 10. To go to church. I'm just like, no, but no, I mean, either way though, like it was a great game. And one thing I really, really just kind of loved though is how Schroeder, I always mess up his first name, but Sanders, like the quarterback, basically, the way he was able to take it 98 yards, it showed so much of him as a player.
Yeah,
he
a lot
did
of
it with
poise.
his feet, his mind, his arm. It was everything there.
Yep.
And I was like, that's the kind of quarterback you want. And one thing I really did love, although I kind of hate this guy, Tom Brady, he's like, hey, it's Brady time. He left me too much in clock. So I just love kind of the cockiness that he had to it.
Yeah.
But it's kind of cockiness that you want in your quarterback.
Well, it's
Yeah.
that fine line between cocky and confident.
Yeah.
Because like I always had a coach who told me like cocky is when you say it and you're able to do it. Confident is when you say it and you might be able to do it. And so that cockiness is just him going, okay, let's go.
And like, who else to have it than the primetime son?
Right.
Like, Deion was able to always to prove it. So it's like, it's crazy. Hey, genetically, that also passed down too.
Yep.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Genetics work.
No.
Wow. Who would have thunk it?
I know. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
It's crazy.
Now, I guess we're just gonna like keep rolling here, and
Yeah,
I'm gonna go into burst your bubble.
Yeah. Well, because we're all still on the same topic at this point.
We are, and so like, listen. Speaking of Colorado, yet again, the Colorado fans rushed the field.
Yeah. I mean,
And I want
Okay.
so bad to say the Colorado fans, and I'm going to burst your bubble and go through the same thing. Like, listen, I think in the next 9 games, the last 9 games, 6 of those games are against teams that are currently ranked in the top 25. You have a lot of work to do. But with what we talked about a little bit earlier,
yep.
and just all these top 10 teams that are kind of struggling, I have to burst the bubble of, and this is very broad, so like I'm hoping I step on a lot of toes here.
It's fair.
Anybody,
At least 8.
anybody, what's that?
At least 8.
At least 8 of them. Anybody whose team is in the top, I'd say top 10, top 25
Sure.
in the AP poll, and you're really firmly believing that
Yep.
you are in that position, I want to burst your bubble. Okay. So here's the thing. The AP poll, there's a reason that it comes out, and it's just kind of like year round, and nobody really cares until, the real poll comes
yeah.
out. So we look at Georgia. Georgia doesn't move after they barely win against South Carolina.
Yep.
Michigan doesn't move after beating another dominating team
Their coach is back next week.
outside of the Power Five.
Their coach is back.
Their coach is back, and just in time. Texas moves up after struggling with Wyoming, and honestly, their big win against Bama looks kind of bad after Bama only moves down 3 after putting up 17 points on USF.
And that's it.
That's it, 17 points. Florida State only moves down 1 after barely beating the
Boston College.
ever perennial Boston College. Colorado only moves down 1 after a double overtime win against Colorado State. Miami only moves up 2 after being honestly one of the more consistent teams in the top 25.
Agreed.
And then Tennessee drops 12 to 23 after a loss against a team that got brought up into the 25. Now listen, this year has been fun. I think we all can agree that this kind of all these teams winning and losing and this being kind of this you never know what to expect. It's been a lot of fun, but I don't understand where all these decisions in the AP are coming from. I don't get it.
Yeah. It doesn't even feel like a popularity contest anymore.
No,
It
when Florida State moved up as high as they did, I'm like, oh yeah, give them the credit. They, they did what they needed to do.
Yeah.
They dominated these games. Clemson drops out. All of that kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But after this week, and you're not even having any movement in the top 4. Come on now.
Yeah.
Come on.
Agreed.
I mean, who can you really put up there, though, at the same time? There hasn't really been a dominant team to kind of be moving back and forth with.
Well, there hasn't, but there hasn't been a dominating team, but there have been, and again, this is going to sound horrible because I'm an Ohio State fan, but Ohio State has actually been getting better.
Yeah.
Right?
I hope so.
But what I'm saying is Ohio State started off against Indiana. That was kind of rough. Their second game, they, didn't meet up to the expectations, but then against Bowling Green, they put up 63 and their defense looked great. Against Bowling Green. So, yeah. So, but not saying much, but why are they staying put when all these other teams struggled against? So it doesn't make sense to me. I don't get it.
So the Ohio State has shown improvement, but then you've also got USC and Oregon who are shown consistency.
Yep.
And they're getting kind of shafted. And it's just I mentioned to you guys after the loss with Florida, I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if we get kicked out of the top 25 because I personally right now don't think that Tennessee is playing at a level where they deserve to be in the top 25. And I know we've got the talent for it. I'm not saying that at all, but Tennessee's got to get into their groove to figure that one out. And I don't believe that Florida should be back in the top or should be in the top 25 just because that's just kind of it's.
I feel like it's just the timing of the win. I don't think they're there yet.
Well, but
I feel like the timing.
It's again, if Tennessee is going to drop that far for the loss, why is Florida then getting put in? If you're saying
think about it, Colorado, who only won 1 game last year, with 1 win, they entered the top 25. So is it really that surprising with Florida?
Well, it's not surprising that it happened. Is it? Am I still confused as to why all this is happening? Yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But hey, you know what? They're not asking me to put a vote in for my top 25.
No, because you'd be biased. You put Ohio State probably at 1.
I didn't do that this year.
I'm surprised. The love for Ohio State is real, man.
Hey, listen, I'm going to cheer my team, but I'm also going to be realistic about that team.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I'll give you credit on that.
Yeah. Well, and I think and I get the AP might not want to do what, the playoff poll's willing to do, which is oh, well, let's just dethrone the previous national champion just because, they kind of
just because they're sucking,
just because they just don't look great. They don't look as polished as they should.
It's a little hard to disrespect a team though, that also has not lost.
Agreed.
So not saying they don't deserve to they deserve to be on top just because of that. Because I feel like every season is different and you should be ranked off just that season.
Well, then put Notre Dame in the top 5.
Oh, please don't start with that.
Please
don't start with that.
They've looked more dominant in their wins.
Yep.
Because who has Notre Dame played?
We didn't.
Team is Central Michigan.
The same level competition that Georgia has, the same level competition that Ohio State has.
And look how much love they're getting.
Mm-hmm.
They should not be getting this kind of love. I'm not saying they're bad teams. It's just I would say maybe 2 of those teams should be in the top 10. One of those teams barely in the top 25.
Yeah.
So again, I'm not going to argue whether these teams should or shouldn't be where they are. It doesn't kind of the inconsistencies in how teams move or when teams move, or it just doesn't make any sense.
No, I mean,
So-
at this point, I feel like anybody in the top 25, you can literally just kind of scramble them, and it kind of makes sense where they fall. There's, like, Michael, you were saying earlier, like, I believe you said you saw like an article where it's like there's no really like elite teams or like just
Yeah, a lot of pundits
Yeah.
are saying that right now. There's no elite teams in college football, which makes for a ton of
It's crazy.
exciting plays.
It's a lot more fun.
Yeah, and so it's just like there's a reason for why there's all this crazy parity going on every week in and week out. And why, honestly, going into this next segment, calling upsets, it actually makes it kind of difficult because what really is going to be an upset? Like sometimes they're like you're going to call a team that should technically be winning, but it really actually looks like that might be they might be creating the upset because the other team's really hot or something like that. Because I thought about oh well, an upset would be like Oregon actually beating Colorado. It's like I personally think that's going to happen regardless, but they're favored to win. It's just but how the media perceives Colorado right now, oh man, that would be totally an upset, even though it's really not. Statistically, it's not an upset.
No, it's not.
And so that's not one of my upsets for this week. But going into
You're
that,
picking enemies already.
Yeah,
you're gonna be on Dion's list.
Right.
I'm not.
For you.
I'm really trying not to. But Dion,
By the way, take the hat off, man.
Oh, okay. Let me go get some shades real quick.
Yeah.
But Dion, if you really are upset about it, feel free to come on the show and talk with us about it. You're more than welcome to kick me with your 8 toes.
I'll even let you wear your hat and your glasses.
You can definitely wear. We've got enough lights in here that it doesn't matter.
You're on your own with
Just
that
bring,
one.
just bring us a pair.
Yeah, just bring us a pair of your awesome glasses. They're pretty cool, and a hat. Your hats are pretty cool too.
The hats are legit.
Yeah,
I like their hats.
I mean,
I'm not gonna lie. I really do like their hoodies.
I think I would look like an idiot in their sunglasses, but that's just
you don't even need the sunglasses for that. Man, don't worry.
It's all good. I mean, but that's the thing is Dion has definitely made their drip look great. So, but going into the upset alerts for this week, my first pick is, and this is where I hopefully I'm going to redeem myself a little bit. And it pains me to do this because of the fact that I have so much disdain for this particular coach. But I'm going to give Lane Kiffin the win over Bama. I think that Lane Kiffin is going to go in and have some fun in Tuscaloosa. And again, they're playing like an actual team. They're rolling well. They easily still could win the West. West is really just up for grabs right now. It'll be interesting to see how them and LSU play it out because that's going to be the real deciding factor, I think. Bama just doesn't feel as much like a contender for the West this year. After this past weekend, now things could change, but you can't on a high-powered offense like Ole Miss has that has an offensive mastermind like Lane Kiffin. You cannot play this weird defensive ball on the offensive side where you can't even move it properly. You're having to do either deep balls or you're just trying to run it up the gut and do this murder ball thing when you can't even control the clock properly.
I mean, is Milroe going to come back for this?
So my understanding is Milroe is going to be back at the helm. From what I've heard, Saban has basically said that Milroe is back officially
he
as.
needs him.
What,
Yeah. No, I was looking at the probability of Alabama winning. So according, it would actually be an upset because Alabama is actually the favorite on ESPN, 65.8% chance.
See, yeah,
that I really think. I mean, I understand it's Alabama, and so I get where they're coming from. But after watching these two teams for the past 3 weeks, 4 weeks,
It's
I mean, I feel like that's more of a if you want to give Alabama the edge, it's 55-45.
Yeah,
I'll give them a
something like
slight edge, but I don't know about this kind of number.
And see, the thing is, that's ESPN's probability counter. But if we look at, and I don't have the actual stats, but if I remember correctly, the opening line for this at Vegas, because that is a more accurate stat usually.
if money's involved, it's probably going to be more accurate.
There's usually more accurate stat
There's
line.
a reason why people watch
I want
Vegas.
to say Bama was favored by double digits, and now it's only 7 points. So
Who else was favored by 7 points this past weekend?
Oh, shut up.
Wrong?
it
No,
was
I'm just saying,
actually 5.5.
I'm just saying, in your upset, if the math is right, if history strikes twice, then that's going to be accurate.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, but it's one of those things. I just feel like Ole Miss is hitting their stride, which is exactly what Alabama doesn't.
Right.
I didn't know, but Ole Miss's quarterback is actually just dominating. I'm looking at his like numbers right now.
Yeah.
I'm like, the dude can run, the dude can throw. It's like, I wonder if he could throw to himself and be able to catch. Like what else is left to do?
Maybe. I don't know if he's that fast. But anyways, that's my first upset for the week. And I honestly did struggle this week just to find another upset. And I was originally just going to stick with this one, but I've decided to also bring in, because I do think that this is something that I think we're going to see an upset from UCLA. I think UCLA is going to upset Utah. Utah is still kind of struggling on the offensive front.
Yeah.
And if Cam Rising was back in at 100% health, I think that it would be a very different conversation. Because while we know that their offense has been decent, it has not been efficient.
Right.
Whereas UCLA has a very healthy offense.
No, I actually really love their quarterback.
And yeah,
Dante Moore, he's a freshman and he's playing extremely well.
Oh, he's a freshman?
Yeah.
yeah.
He like he only played, I feel like maybe it was like the first game. He played like on like the second quarter.
Yeah.
And Chip Kelly was like, cool, you're now the starter. And he's been playing extremely well. He's really efficient too. So
impressive.
I'm actually going to be with you on that board, Michael.
Yeah,
like UCLA.
And I see them like I can easily see them being one of those weird dark horses for the Pac-12 this year.
It's wild.
And it's wild. They have some very good teams right now, and so it's really hard to kind of gauge who's going to be the dominant teams coming out of this year. But UCLA seems to be the more well-rounded out of all of the teams.
Right.
I would say so, yeah. Like it's kind of a hard say on that, but yeah, and the Pac-12 alone has 8 teams that are ranked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're trying to show out for their
Like,
last
hey,
year.
we got to give a big old bang. Like, let's go.
The 8 teams that are leaving are all
And 2 on the side. Like,
Well, one other thing, like, felt like that was a good time to interject myself. You know, one of the things as an Ohio State fan, I like to say Muck Fishigan, right?
Fair enough.
Recently, there were a couple other people who decided to say Muck Fishigan.
Oh, yeah.
There were 2 brothers, Jacob and Jared Smith Jr.
yeah.
They are 2 defensive linemen who decided to decommit from Michigan. They
do everything together, man. They twins.
They do. They're twins. I mean,
Yeah.
they got to. But yeah, they are ranked 97 and 153 in the 2024 ESPN 300.
Obviously, they're not twins in ranking.
Right. They're one of them's a little bit better. But they decided to say Muck Fishigan and decided that they're going to go to Kentucky.
Interesting choice.
Which, you know, here's
all-
out of all the schools, if you were going to go play for Michigan, I think you could have played for some big teams, and you decided to go to Kentucky. So that's an interesting.
The level of drop there, I'm just saying, like, I get it's an SEC school and all, but it's just like,
But hey, Muck Fishigan.
Yeah. Hey, it's a win for
they
an
with you,
Ohio
man.
State
They with
fan.
you on that.
So, but yeah, no, I just thought that was interesting. I wanted to call that out.
Fair enough.
So-
I mean, I get
Definitely a
that.
good call out though.
I mean, it was interesting. I went to a place the other day, and I told a guy, I was like, "Hey, do you want to hear a joke about Michigan?" He goes, "Hey, before you say that," and he's like, "My buddy next to me, he's a Michigan fan. I graduated from Michigan. 2 guys over there, they went to Michigan. You still want to say that?" And I was like, "Oh no, man, you're right. I probably don't want to. I don't want to have to explain myself that many times." So. But going into the game of the week.
Yes, each other's game of the week. I mean, that's a natural segue for the Ohio State fan.
It is, and it's not even the Ohio State-Michigan game.
No, it's not.
So
honestly going to be a good game.
Yep,
Should
it's
be.
it's gonna be a great game. Ohio State Notre Dame. That's got to be my game of the week, and that is a homer pick. I also think
Of
that's probably one of the better games that's going to go on this
Agreed.
weekend. We'll see. Notre Dame fans are chirping a whole lot about how much better they've gotten, which I can agree with. But the part is that how much worse Ohio State's gotten, which I don't really get. I mean, we have a
No.
new quarterback. He's kind of getting broken in, but, you know, I don't know. I think it's
Yeah.
gonna be a good game. I think if Notre Dame's defensive line and their secondary can really step up, and if they can,
just throw it to Harrison. Just throw it to Harrison.
yeah, and that's-
like,
well,
let's
that's-
just let that be like
that's
the play
thing
call.
is I've seen some Notre Dame fans
Yeah.
say, "All we got to do is stop Marvin Harrison." I'm like, man,
Again,
stop.
if they can.
If they can is the one, but then it's like, yeah, stop him. You got Emeka Egbuka, you've got Fleming, you've got 3 running backs that are coming, and you've got our tight end, Cade Stover. I mean, Cade Stover is one of my favorite players, but it's going to be an interesting game. I mean, I will say it's going to rely on McCord a whole lot. Is he going to step up and is he going to show like, hey, I can go into a hostile environment where it's going to be rocking and I can make the right calls? Hopefully they're only giving him 2 read. They're only giving him 2 reads. You're like, hey, Marvin,
Yeah.
Egbuka, check down.
Yeah.
Marvin Egbuka, check down. Like, that's what it needs to be. But can he do it? I think he showed some great things.
Yeah.
I think he's got some great stats. He's shown he's smart with the ball. He's shown he can not outthrow Marvin Harrison Jr., which I don't know who could.
Is that even possible?
But yeah, I'm super excited for that game. I think that's going to be my game of the week. And
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good game of the week. I really do hope, personally, for just all of our sanity, that Ohio State just destroys Notre Dame.
Notre Dame's getting too much hype for they haven't played a decent. They've only played their best team is a decent team.
Here's the thing, though. Like, if they don't, and let's say heaven forbid Notre Dame wins, then we have to eat a lot of words that we've been like all of the
I'd be so disappointed.
the hate that we put towards Notre Dame.
well, I would say this is our podcast, so we can do whatever
We can say
want.
whatever we want, which is true. So we don't even have to eat our words.
That's right.
We can just stay indignant. But I mean, for me, like the game of the week, there's a lot of good games this upcoming weekend. But I think one that's going to be interesting is just because it's going to define the ACC is going to be Florida State versus Clemson. And Florida State is going to Clemson, which is a big thing. Playing in Death Valley is tough.
It is.
But then on top of that, Clemson right now is going to be playing like they've got nothing to lose.
I mean, they actually got nothing, man. Like they've already. Don't get me wrong, that one loss, but it's just like you guys lost all credibility.
I get you. Yeah,
you got to win.
And so, like, I think that if FSU can go in there, handle business, and show like, hey, Boston College was just a fluke,
Right.
Then they're going to still show a relatively dominant team in the ACC. That they're the captains
Yep.
now.
Yeah.
They're the captains now.
Yep.
And so it's just one of those things. Like at that point, it's really just going to be FSU and Miami duking it out, and that's why I'm really interested. I mean, I guess Louisville's in there still. We can't.
You can't count Louisville. I mean, I get it,
but
they just cruised on by for the last week's game.
yeah,
Well, so everybody did.
Yeah.
Everybody just kind of cruised last week. So
yeah. So, but I think that the game is going to be competitive, which is great. And I don't see this one being one that either team is just going to run with. Florida State's got too good of a defense for Clemson to do much with, and honestly, like Florida State, if Florida State struggles on offense, just from a standpoint of just putting up points like they did against Boston College against a decent-ish Clemson defense, then you're going to see it might end up being a relatively low-scoring game, which would be very weird for a pretty
It'd be interesting
for both explosive offenses. Yeah, it'd be very interesting.
I mean, depending on which week of Clemson you're talking about, explosive.
Well, that's true. They might implode.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Might have already something for you, man.
yeah,
be watching that one.
yeah. But I think that at the end of the day, like it's one of those that it's going to be great just to see what's left standing in the ACC after this, because it's really going to be the defining game of the ACC for most of this year.
Yeah.
For sure.
So
I mean, I feel like between that game, they're probably going to be clicking between the Florida game and the Florida State game and the Clemson and Colorado and Oregon.
Yeah.
you had to pick Colorado, didn't you?
I'm just saying, okay. you got to be hating, man. I'm going to send in the list of both y'all to Sanders. No, don't get me wrong. It's going to be leaning probably one way. But it really will show the test of how Colorado really is going to stand versus an elite, or there's not a lot of elite schools, but one of the better teams or one of the elite schools that can be that is Oregon. Bo Nix, amazing.
Yeah, he's balling out this year.
Yes, and then Oregon's running back, who I actually really just enjoy just watching, Irving, is able to run wild and everything like that. Now Colorado, don't get me wrong, even with already the difference of possibly talent or even just coaching,
Well, especially being down with
they're gonna be
Hunter.
down with Hunter. So it's and he's gone for 3 weeks, and it's kind of the worst time for him to be
Right.
out.
Yep.
But it's just gonna be it's still gonna show kind of a test on how Colorado themselves kind of be built together and how Dion is gonna be able to kind of set them up to be able to prepare them. And this game alone, even though both teams are kind of close to be ranked from like 19 and 10. Like I don't know what the Vegas kind of like rating in right now, but ESPN has Oregon winning by almost 94%.
And that has to do with
It's
the fact
wild.
that this is the best offense Colorado's gonna see so far
they're
this year,
explosive. They're crazy
And the best
explosive.
defense.
and the best defense, and that's the thing that Colorado hasn't been able to show people is that their front, like offensive line and defensive line, are competent.
Yeah.
Because they haven't had to play anybody that have good offensive and defensive lines.
And I'm really going to look forward to just like, quarterback Sanders just to see how he's going to play. Because I love the way he's been playing like the first couple of games. So I just want to see if he's going to be able to dissect Oregon. And honestly, if he does, even if they lose, but he's able to do well,
Right.
I can't help it. I'm like, hey, he has to, if he's not already a Heisman candidate, for sure he has to be one just because he just plays amazing ball.
It'd be even more exciting to see when Hunter actually comes back.
Yeah.
And I mean, like I said earlier, 6 of the next 9 games are all against
They're all going to
ranked
spring
teams.
teams.
So I mean, he's got a lot to prove, and getting Hunter back in 3 weeks will be great. I mean,
But
it's,
in the meantime, it's just like,
in the meantime,
can we
it's just
survive?
like,
If they're
what
able to
can he
win,
do?
I feel like at best they're going to split them. But, I'm kind of hope I'm proven wrong. I hope they kind of win. I
I'll be
kind of
honest.
want them to win.
I'm kind of in that boat too, where I'm
Yeah.
like, I kind of like seeing them win. Like it's kind of
Yeah,
fun. I'm
it's-
like,
it's
stop
hype.
rushing the field.
Yeah.
Stop rushing. The
Well,
field.
here's the thing.
If you
It'll
rush
be
it at 10.
you can rush it against Oregon. You
Right.
can rush it against USC. Those are fine.
Yeah.
Those are top
I don't know if
25
they're going to
wins.
Oregon. Like, it's going to be at Oregon. It's going to be at Eugene.
That would be
so-
impressive.
Yeah, that would be an aggressive
mean,
move. But
That would be
I
impressive.
really wonder how many fans are going to show up because Colorado's been literally bringing celebrities, like Hall of Famers, all to their game. So I just want to see like how much of the Colorado
hey,
fan
coach, if
base
you want me
is
to
gonna
come,
be.
just let me know.
Yeah.
I'll pep up your team.
I don't know about you. Like, I don't know if you got that guy. No, you can be like
They'll
Lil
burst your
Wayne.
bubble.
Right? Yeah. It's like,
You guys are really gonna. You guys can't really jump on this field. Is that what you're gonna tell them?
Yes.
It's like, hey,
Yeah.
guys,
This
relax.
isn't your field.
listen, all of y'all take off your hats and glasses while I'm talking. No, but yeah, it's gonna be fun. I mean,
I'm looking forward to it. Like,
this lineup, like, I'm going to go through real quick. I know
Yeah.
we got to kind of finish up. So week 4, Florida State, Clemson, Iowa, Penn State,
Yep. Good game.
Ole Miss, Alabama,
Yep.
Ohio State, Notre Dame, UCLA, Utah, Colorado, Oregon, Arkansas, LSU, Oregon State, WSU, Washington State, and Texas, Baylor. Like, this is going to be a fun week.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, I'm excited.
yeah.
I'm excited.
I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm
I'm
just so
pretty sure
excited.
Penn State's probably gonna blow out Iowa. Like, I really think that's.
I
gonna
can see
happen.
it. Yeah.
Like, I don't think Iowa was. I think it's gonna be.
I mean, Iowa's got probably the most senior defense in the Big Ten, so it's
do.
going to be interesting.
I
It
just
really
kinda-
is going to be
same.
interesting.
Like, I just feel like Penn State, like they're probably one of the more elite teams that I would say like
I
more
agree.
dominant teams.
Iowa?
but they're just all
Penn
Penn
State.
State. They're just all continuously slept on because of Ohio State, because
Of Michigan.
Michigan.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
They lost to them last year, so they just kind of get overlooked by that. But I feel like Penn State, it probably the one to kind of watch out for it overall.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, again, thanks for joining tonight's tailgate. Come back next week as we recap what should be one of the most competitive weeks so far.